Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I'm your host, Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Soneshwara Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. And as usual, we're here today with our co-host coming to you from our studio in Los Angeles, Scott
Okay.
Davalos. Hey, Scotty,
Hi, good morning.
how you doing?
Good.
That's good.
Early.
What's that?
I said it's early today.
Yeah, with the time change. Um, did you hear, Scotty, that Prime Minister Modi from India is coming to the United States in June? At least I heard that one source I heard that from. Is that true? Do you know?
I haven't heard that, but it would make sense with everything going on with that I've heard lately
Yeah, I
about.
think what I heard is he's coming to, he's going to be in New York, I guess at the UN first, and then he's going to go down to DC and see President Biden. Uh, I'm going to try to see him. I'd really like him to come to Mount Soma. And I think we've made some contact with some of the minister, a minister, and some of the parliament members that are really in support of Mount Soma and love what we're doing. And they've already reached out to Prime Minister Modi, some of them, and who knows, they'd love him to meet with me. So we'll see what happens. And I know Prime Minister Modi is a very spiritual man. Before becoming prime minister, I guess for a number of years, he was up in the Himalayas and visiting temples, and that was his life. So we'll see what happens. He's very much into the Vedic knowledge. And there are a number of Vedic scholars that really understand uh, the sophistication of Vedic knowledge and the delicacy of it and the refinement of it. And the fact that there's so much in the Vedic literature and the Vedic cognitions that are very powerful technologies. And so much of what we currently don't understand. How did they build some of these temples? And it's beyond what we can comprehend right now. But amazingly, it's in the Vedic literature, but it largely is going ignored. And Prime Minister Modi is a man that has that appreciation and understanding. And, we're working with those Vedic scholars and they're ready to go to build these technologies. And it's really just a matter of funding. And in contrast to the amount of money that's being spent by the governments, it's just a pittance. So we'll see what happens. Um, Today, I think what we want to do, if you watch the news and stuff, they talk about this situation and that situation, and they're just a little isolated. I don't know how little you'd consider them. I mean, in one sense, they're huge, especially if you're caught in the midst of them. But if we can take a step back and look at the larger whole and see how it all fits into that, I think we do well to do that. Otherwise, we lose the forest for the trees. And when we do that, each little incident can become horrifying, and then we don't really realize uh, what the bigger picture is and what's really going on. You know, but uh, it's coming out now. I saw that more and more uh, of the top research physicians and scientists, they're saying the time for the vaccinations is over, with respect to the COVID virus. Did you see that, Scotty? I know that people like Bhattacharya in Stanford, highly recognized physician, has come out and said a lot about the virus, and more people are coming out and saying that the way that it was approached was a mistake. And just from a commonsensical point of view, people knew that. I mean, our grandmothers knew that, the sunshine was better than confining all people in a closed quarter and everybody then gets sick because the virus spreads. That's one example. And The vaccine, I mean, the CDC refusing to release the research and the statistics on the harm it's been doing people. Uh, uh, what does that tell you? You know, and just everywhere you look, the border, all the fentanyl coming across the border, the raw materials for the fentanyl coming from China into Mexico and then across the border through the cartels. Everywhere you turn, the whole Ukraine thing. The United States pouring all that money into Ukraine to protect their border, whereas making our border with Mexico porous. The whole thing is nonsensical. You know, it's crazy, and just everything. What else, Scotty? It seems like everywhere you look, it's just another crazy thing, and it makes you wonder if there are extraterrestrials out there watching what's going on the earth. It'd be no wonder that they don't want to make contact with us, because our behavior is just ludicrous, you know. And every nation, I mean, if you just go nation by nation and look what's going on, you know, we do well ask ourselves, do you feel safe? I don't think anybody in any nation right now really feels safe, you know. But the good news is that
Well, Michael, when you're
the good
walking
news is
around
that people
town,
are getting to the point now where they've had it. I mean, it's becoming self-evident, and people are realizing that, you know, this has got to stop. Uh, Go ahead, Scotty.
I was just saying when you're walking around town, or because I mean, on one sense, when you watch the news or you watch anything else, it's like somebody the other night was on a thread from our school, saying, just how crazy everything is, and it is. I mean, there's a lot of crazy things happening in the world, but when you walk around or you go to the store or you go to anywhere, I'm sure in certain areas in isolate, it's like I went to the Congo one time and they said, "Are you going to the Congo? That's the most dangerous place on earth. What are you, crazy?" So I go there, and because I had to go there, and I was like, it's not that crazy. I don't feel like imminent danger, somebody trying to kill me, you know what I mean? So I think, it's like, careful where you point your mind, because it goes there too. I think there's some of that going on,
Well, if you just look at the per capita, you know, violent deaths per capita, there are locations in the United States that are much more downtown LA,
right.
parts of Chicago that, you know, they're more dangerous than even war zones.
Yeah. And that's an isolated small part of the city, you know,
Mm,
that's what I'm
yeah.
getting at. It's like, if you walk around town here, or, I mean, have you felt an imminent danger,
Mm,
walking around Asheville
yeah.
or,
It's everywhere you turn, Scotty. Everything is just upside down nuts right now, you know.
no,
And it's just exactly, I mean, it was predicted. It's in the Vedic literature. It was predicted 5,000 years ago. It's in the Jyotish. It's in even the numerology. It's everywhere. You know, all this is planned. It was predicted. It's in the, you know, the sun rises and the sun sets, you know. And right now, you know, it's always darkest before the dawn. And there are other times like World War II, horrible and stuff, but never a time where everywhere you turn, everything is upside down. Everything is nuts, you know. Uh, uh, Transsexual parties with kindergartners. I mean, uh, uh, sex changes for children without being required to tell their parents, and doctors are actually performing those things. And but the point is, if we take a step back and look at the whole big picture of all this, then we realize, you know, something crazy is happening, and it's a phase transition, and it's a universal principle. Their universal principles map across the board. It's like when you, and we've used way of applying that same universal principle of phase transition is when you take water and you cool it down, cool it down, cool it down, cool it down, it's more and more coherent. The water's bubbling or like less and less. But there's a point there right when it gets to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 centigrade, right when it's about to become ice, it gets crazy for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, when it freezes, it becomes very crystal and very coherent in structure. That's where we're at right now. Everything is just nuts, but it's going to shift. It's going to shift very soon. And when it does, as has been said, it's like a sawtooth curve where we go from this age of Kali Yuga, this age of craziness. It's a sawtooth curve where it just spikes right up to Sat Yuga. And I hope to go into this next primarily from the perspective of the structure of the Veda and Vedic literature. There's, and I've talked about in the past where there's Shruti, Smriti, and Puranas. Shruti is a pure unified field, the pure Chaitanya, infinite harmony, life of pure dharma, pure harmony with nature. And that's the life in Satyug. And so everybody is living in harmony with nature. And we're in Kali Yuga right now, and it's complete disharmony, and so when that transition happens, it happens very quickly. And so really, we might say, oh, we're living in this horrible time. How unfortunate to be living in this time. And yeah, in one sense, it is terrible. But in another sense, we're the privileged ones, really, because we're the ones that are going to have that rare opportunity that comes about only in, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years, where we actually see that very rare moment in history where we do that sawtooth curve, that moment in time where we see the transition from Kali to Sat Yuga. And it's going to be incredible. And so we are really fortunate to have the opportunity to see that and really to be able to tell our children and grandchildren like that about, that shift and what it's like. It's going to be incredible, So just hang in there, steady hand on a rudder. Things are going to become, something really great. But right now, it really makes you wonder, the ruling class. Now, the ruling class, the people that are in charge, so to speak, they are really just a reflection of the group consciousness. So in one sense, we, create them based on the nature of the global mentality. But in another sense, when you look at them and you can say what we've created, you've got to wonder, who are these people and what makes them tick? What are they thinking and what motivates them? I know some people who have been around them and have spoken, say when you look into their eyes, it's like nobody's there. It's like they're just gone. And then I saw this quote this morning. I posted it in the blog that goes along with this podcast. I thought it was pretty good. He said, if you wear a mask for too long, there will come a time when you cannot remove it without removing your face. I mean, you become the facade to the point where, how do they say it? Sometimes you lose your soul, It's not really possible to lose your soul, but the thing is that you lose your identity with who it is and what it is you are to such an extent that you become the mask, and so in that sense, the way it's said is they lose their soul, and then they serve this facade to the point. I think they lose touch with the reality of how they affect people. Sometimes that's referred to as becoming cold-hearted, but it's even more than that. They become so in service and so dedicated to, for different reasons, to what they're doing and the narrative, the cause, if you will, that they turn themselves over to, that they don't really have any sensitivity left to what it is they're really doing to people. I think there are different reasons. Some people do it just because there's at that point there's no way out. Like what motivates them? I know George Soros even said that he doesn't care about the effect he has on people. He says he does what he does. He even said for the money. Did you hear that quote, Scotty?
No.
Yeah, he said it's all just for the money. He doesn't care the effect it has on people. And I think other people, if they've done so many things that are illegal or illegitimate or what have you, if they ever did get out of power, they'd go to prison. Their families would go to prison. They have no choice then but to stay dedicated to what they've done and to stay in power at all costs, and then their whole sense of other human beings, they don't care anymore. Then there are other people though that are they're gullible and they can't really accept and believe, and I think this goes for a lot of the masses even, that they can't even accept or believe the level of corruption. They can't believe that anybody would be that corrupt. They can't believe, for example, that the pharmaceutical companies would be injecting things into people's arms, children's arms, when the information and the data is out that says how life-damaging those things are and how unnecessary they are. And so the CDC just refuses to let that data be published. And they even people who hear that, they refuse to believe that that's true. And so what do? If somebody comes out and says it, they judge the person that's saying that. Even though the facts are there, the CDC is not releasing the information, but they just can't believe that the motivation would be that corrupt. I'm a veterinarian. I was in practice for a number of years, and I remember when I got the wake-up call that these drug representatives would come and, I'd be using tetracycline, for example, as an antibiotic, and there was no patent on it, so it was dirt cheap. You could even go down to the feed and supply store down the road and buy a 50-pound bag of it for another number, $10. They use it, they dump it in feedlots, feed the cattle, And so they'd come along with another antibiotic that there was a patent on. And they'd come in with their statistics and their charts, and they would show you convincingly that if you use tetracycline, it's basically malpractice because this new antibiotic was so great. And then so you'd be paying, 100 times, literally 100 times the cost per tablet of this new antibiotic. And then son of a gun, a couple of years later, as soon as the patent ran out on that new antibiotic, they'd come with new charts showing you that now that what was the new antibiotic was now dirt cheap, that you would be practicing malpractice if you used that antibiotic, and now you had to use this other new antibiotic, which was now 100 times more expensive than that other new antibiotic from a couple of years ago. And it just kept going on like that. And it's a racket. It is a racket, And so it gets to the point where it's all of, by, and for the money. And it's not just limited to the pharmaceutical companies, And if you just watch the commercials on television, it's all marketing, What is that one thing, Scotty? Have you seen the commercial about they're selling these vegetable and fruit tablets, and the guy goes on about how they process it, and it's really healthy, you know. And then
Yeah.
they interview these people about how this fruit and vegetable capsules change their lives.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'm skeptical, you know, very skeptical. And anyway,
The biggest one is the
turn up your volume if you can. Yeah.
the largest um, advertisers in the world now are like Pfizer and all the drug companies. They have like, I forgot, it's some crazy percentage, but it's like a majority of ads.
Yeah. And then right at the
Yeah.
end, they talk really, really fast and really, really softly. And you got to listen really, really carefully, and you still can't get it all. And they're talking about the side effects. And I even heard one of them, I even heard one of them mention one of the side effects briefly was death.
Yeah.
Anyway, uh, anyway, you know, you see all this stuff going on about the wars and the Ukraine, and could there be a World War III, on and on and on. All this will self-correct, you know, it's all going to be better. We just have to hang in there. And another reason, you know, some people just can't believe that anybody would be that corrupt, and so they tend to believe what's they're being force fed, uh, just for that reason alone. Another people just aren't paying attention, you know. Uh, so I think it's important to pay attention, and I really try to watch different news perspectives, you know, and the different, you know, channels, and just to hear what different people are saying. And if you just do that and you just pay attention and use your common sense, I think you can tell. You got to be able to tell, uh, just with your common sense, what does make sense and what doesn't. I mean, like Janet Yellen, head of the Treasury Department, for goodness sake, and she's more into diversity and equity, and than she is in just basic economic reason and common sense. And what does that tell you? And then the governor of South Dakota, what's her name, Kristi Noem, she was even saying that we can no longer trust the government. Oh my goodness, you know, how far do we have to look? This is not bad news. This is good news. Why is it good news? Because people are waking up. People are waking up. And it's going to change from the grassroots. It's not going to change from the top. They're established. A lot of the people in the top uh, don't want to change. They can't change. They're in it either for the money or to protect themselves or to stay out of prison or what have you. They got a gravy train going. They don't want the boat rocked, whatever. It's going to change from the grassroots, and it's not going to be, it doesn't have to be, I don't want it to be a rebellion. It needs to be really votes and thought and reflection and common sense. But even this thing, and what is it, New Palestine, whatever the name of that little town is in Ohio, horrible, absolutely horrible. And Biden is not going there. Why in the world aren't they helping those people? Why do you think they're not helping those people, Scotty?
Well,
You got to talk into the mic, Scott.
it's the partisan divide that's causing things, and it just drives you crazy. It's not even just that Palestine thing. I don't know if you watched the Matt Taibbi and his other guy that broke the Twitter file things,
Mm.
and they're, you know, they have them on the, you see the Republicans ask a certain set of questions, the Democrats go the other way, just to try to discredit them, and it's just ridiculous. The partisan divide is causing more complications, problems, everything, because everybody has to push their agenda so that they can stay in, it seems like, so they can stay in power or whatever, and it's causing all of these issues.
When people start serving their political interests more than they're serving the nation and the people, we got a big problem. And that's what they're doing. I mean, that little town in Ohio is Trump country. And if it was Biden country, I think Biden would be there. I think they would be sending money to help those people. And they're even saying that the problem is infrastructure with the railroads. The problem is, well, you said it, Scotty, and since you said that in the previous podcast, I've been following up on it. You're absolutely right. They just don't have the number of people in those trains and that to monitor the warning systems that are intact.
Yeah, and that's driven by corporate profits, things like that are,
That's right.
from an investment standpoint, you got to keep showing that you're raising your EBITDA.
And if you have a coalition between the corporations and the government, and they're basically in cahoots together.
Yeah, they're the ones that are donating to.
That's right.
The other thing that's
right.
one of the most genius things I've seen, or I saw again, was Dave Chappelle when he's like talking about Trump and how Trump became super famous and relevant when he was having the debate with Hillary Clinton, and then Hillary's like, well, he doesn't pay his taxes, and Trump says, yeah, that's right, because I'm smart.
Yeah.
And not only do I not pay my taxes, but all of your donors don't pay taxes, and there's nothing that you're going to do about it because you're setting up the system. They're the ones that are giving you the money to be here right now.
The
And they're
government
all
the government puts
getting
up the
tax
hoop.
benefits.
Yeah. The government puts up the hoops and people jump through them.
Right.
And you don't judge the people for jumping through the hoops. You judge the government for not putting up appropriate hoops.
Not only that, but bringing up the fact that she's talking all righteous and everything about this, I pay my taxes and this and that, but all of her donor base, all these policies, everything are being set up so that those corporations, everybody, gets to take advantage of this. And then at the same time, too, we've got to realize that all these giant corporations, even though some of them pay like little or no tax, but it's still the top 1% pays 80 to 90% of the taxes that are paid.
Yeah.
Too. So it's like one of those weird multivariable equations that, hey, it's necessary because, they have to be able to do business and stay in business, and they're paying a big chunk of it, and I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't know if you know.
I know what you're saying. And really, if they were to ask me, okay, what are you going to do? How would you structure the tax system? I would say I would get the 10 smartest people I can find when it comes to the economy and taxes, and get them in a room and have them sit down and talk and listen to them and go with what they came up with. But I would have veto power, because if somebody was in there and talking and they were just not making any common sense, we'd get rid of them. But the tax laws are so complex and everything that you need smart people. You don't need Janet Yellens in there, But there are smart people, and we just don't have them. We're not using them. Most of the smart people that, when it comes to tax law, are accountants dodging the stupid tax laws that these guys created. And that's a fact. There's
Well,
more money in jumping through the hoops than there is in creating the hoops.
another thing that came to my mind when I don't know if you saw the thing about they were saying that there should be competency tests for the president or something like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
based on, but they were saying it based on Biden being old, but I'm saying there should be competency tests, period, on all of these things, just like what you're talking about. Is that it's like the people that are making the policy now, you know how somebody picked them, somebody picked Janet Yellen,
I
right?
know.
It wasn't like, okay,
Yeah.
Janet Yellen went through a series of things to tell that she's the best person for the job,
Well,
right?
the people that are running Washington D.C. by and large are not elected.
Right.
They're a bunch of bureaucrats.
Yeah. Well, what I'm
And
saying is that if there's like almost like a competition, for these particular positions or whatever, there has to be some kind of thing that shows that they have the ability to do these things. Either do you have a resume? I don't go and say, hey, I'm going to go to JLL, who's a huge developer, and say, hey, I'm going to, hire me as president. Well, I know, this guy and this guy and this guy. Okay, so you're president.
but you
It's
see,
no, I'm the
that's
best one.
that's why if you get too deep into the weeds, you're just going to get tangled up in it.
Yeah.
You know, it all comes back to we have to purify global consciousness. That's the fundamental thing. Uh, uh, Everybody knows that to have your gums healthy, you got to brush your teeth every day. But that's called dental hygiene. But mental hygiene, we don't know how to do it. And it's just global consciousness, purify global consciousness. You do that and everything's fine. And there's a technology for it. It's a Vedic technology. And when the world wakes up to that, and the world's not even going to wake up to that, not initially. All we need is a handful of people who are open to the Vedic technology, who can initiate it and build these unified field purifiers that the ancient Vedic seers have given us the technology. It's a technology, you know. Everybody doesn't need to know how a cell phone works to benefit from it. Just a handful of people. And then they build them and everybody benefits. And it's the same thing with this. The technology is there. They know how to build it. They've given it to us. It just takes, in the greater scheme of things, a very little bit of money. And we're ready to go. And that's it. But it's too far outside of the paradigm, of the mentality of people that they can accept it. I mean, who would have ever believed in cell phones and telephones and radios and televisions until it was built? And then it's, oh yeah, great. Oh yeah, this is cool. I want one of those. It's the same thing. We just have to build it. And all we need is the amount of money it takes to build, one of those many missiles or bombs that they're throwing at each other in the Ukraine on a daily basis. And it's done. All right. Anything else, Scotty? It looks like we got some comments. Did you cover those, Scotty?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Now, next week, I want to talk. There's so much my real passion isn't current events and all this stuff. It's just that it's so hot right now. It's so important right now. It's so in the news and on the cusp and critical right now that, I keep feeling the necessity of discussing this stuff. But my real passion is the Vedic knowledge, the Vedic understanding of all this, and it's vast, and that's my real love. And so hopefully, unless a whole bunch comes up over the next week that I feel like we just need to talk about and need to discuss because it's so pressing, I'd like to get into some of this Vedic literature. And it's just, to me, it's just exquisitely beautiful and profound. So we'll see what comes up. Hopefully, we'll do that next week. But until then, we'll see what happens. So thanks for listening. Appreciate you listening. And I'm also, we have a lot of listeners from all over the world now. I have a lot of listeners I noticed from Germany and, all over Europe and really all over the world. So thanks for listening. And I think of you, and we'll see you next week.